go to, so I want to get your opinion on the ICC arresting former President Duterte of the Philippines. And by the way, before you answer, everybody call is working on something that if it comes through, it's going to be major for. I'm telling you, it's awesome. But could you go into that, Carl, about how the ICC has no problem pursuing someone that was trying to have an independent policy for his nation, but they have all the problems pursuing Netanyahu, George Bush Sr., and all of these other war criminals, and George Bush Jr.?
Well, Rashid, ICC is designed for brown people. I mean, it's simple. It's designed for the third world countries. They never meant for ICC to prosecute a member of the so-called collective West, right? I mean, Israel is definitely part in that camp. And now even with ICC a conviction of Israel over issue of genocide, nothing in concrete terms has been done. Instead, they go after Duterte. So what did the Duterte do? I mean, of course, what Duterte's real crime is he tried to pilot a independent foreign policy for the Philippines during his term as the president. He tried to pivot away from its over-reliance on United States to have closer tie with China, with Russia, and particularly to work to diffuse the tensions in South China Sea with China. This is totally unacceptable because for United States, Philippines is the linchpin of South China Sea policy to stir up tensions with China. Philippines is how U.S. can segue into the South China Sea dispute, even though it has nothing to do with United States. But U.S. by claiming that it has a U.S.-Philippine security pact that was signed in the 1950s, that it has the right to intervene in South China Sea. If the Philippines go the other way, U.S. will be deprived of a major reason for intervention in East Asia. So they have to make an example of Duterte. Even though he's now not the president any longer, you have a more pliable puppet, Bongbong Marcos, at the helm, but they have to make an example of him. So they want to make sure there's no more other Dutertes that will show up. And Duterte, he did a thing. He was told that if he came back to the Philippines from his visit to Hong Kong, he will be arrested. But he decided to come back to the Philippines anyway, basically dare them to follow through. And by doing so, just opening up the whole political crisis in the Philippines. Everyone knows Bongbong Marcos, is doing the bidding of the United States. If they arrest Duterte, it's on the behalf of the U.S. And Duterte could choose to stay away, just go into exile. But that's exactly what Bongbong Marcos would like to see happen, to have his political opponent safely outside of the country. And, especially when there's still a very intense competition within the country for between Bongbong Marcos, the president of the Philippines, and the vice president, who also happened to be the daughter of Duterte. And so anyone who is a closer observers of the geopolitics understands this is U.S. is out to punish people who didn't toe their lines. And Duterte dared them to do that because he knows if he put his foot down, they will have to. Now they're having a major political crisis in the Philippines. They can't pretend everything is hunky dory. When the news of arrest broke out in the Philippines, thousands of Duterte supporters took to the street to protest the decision. Now and it further exposed the hypocrisy of ICC, right? I mean, they do nothing about Netanyahu, but they go after Duterte. And let's face it, how many people outside the Philippines even care about the so-called, all these allegations that were thrown against Duterte? How many people? My guess is very few. Most people don't even know what's going on in Duterte. They're accusing Duterte of not following the legal process when going after drug dealers. You know, a lot of people all over the world, there's not many people have sympathies for drug dealers. Okay, and much less you know, like say have something hold against Duterte for going aggressively after drug dealers. But you know, this is something that U.S. is very keen on to prosecute Duterte for, because now they have they want to make an example. They want to make an example of him. Um, so we're gonna have to see how this will play out in the Philippine domestic politics, because now the cat is out of the bag. You know, now we see this huge division in the Philippines itself, because Duterte was very popular during his presidency. I mean, I lived in US. I have a lot of Filipino co-workers at the time, and I asked them their opinion. They're all very supportive of Duterte. They feel like finally there's a leader who cares about the country. You know, whereas previously they just get Filipino leaders who are eager to line their own pockets, like the father of Bongbong Marcos, you know, who fleeced billions of dollars and stacks them away in American banks, which the U.S. has frozen. Now hold that as leverage against Bongbong Marcos, the son. And a lot of my Filipino coworkers who work in U.S. in IT, they, even the very young ones, they very much think Duterte is a man for going after the drug dealers, for cleaning up the country, and for finally standing up for the Philippines. And yet, this is the exact reason that he's been punished for.
What's ironic about this is that I was reading a report a few days ago. They're saying that the United States deployed some destroyers, one on the eastern side of Mexico and one on the western side of Mexico, and they were thinking that the United States may launch strikes on so-called drug zones in Mexico. And remember that for the last 40 to 50 years, almost every U.S. president has been fighting a drug war, so-called, and none of them have been arrested by the ICC. And we just had the most recent president and his vice president, Trump and Vance, talking about, if necessary, going into Mexico with the military and killing what they call drug dealers in Mexico. So we see the hypocrisy of this so clear, Carl, that that it is bright as day.
Well, United States government is never going to win a drug war because they can't fight against CIA. I mean, let's face it. How can the U.S. government fight against the CIA, who started this whole thing? CIA had been flooding drug into this country from their proxies in the South and Central America for decades. This is how they get those monies are not in the books that they can use freely to finance their other nefarious deeds. Everything is off the books because of the drug money. And it's funny, wherever U.S. goes, wherever U.S. empire extends its power, the drug trade follows. Taliban, before U.S. invasion of Afghanistan, they almost wiped out opium production in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. And as soon as NATO invasion of Afghanistan took place, suddenly Afghanistan became like the world's major base for producing opium and heroin. I mean, it's too much of a coincidence. And before that, the biggest base for producing opium and heroin was in the Golden Triangle, in the area bordering by Myanmar, Thailand, and Laos. And that area, again, was seeded and jump-started by CIA by using some defeated Chinese nationalist soldier who got kicked out of mainland China by Mao's People's Liberation Army, and the way they. This reminds me of a lot of the current talks about how United States are now blaming China for the fentanyl crisis in United States. Let's remember, when U.S. talk about other countries, it's almost 100% projection. Because in the 1950s, that's exactly what United States did. As Mao's China was wiping out opium production inside China, it caused a huge supply shock to the rest of the world. And at the time, CIA was using these defeated nationalist soldiers who ran away to Burma to start a new production of opium over there. And they're flooding the world market. But to cover the tracks, at the time, the U.S. drug czar at the time, in the 1950s, he's claiming Mao is flooding the world with opium, right? They're accusing China exactly what they themselves are doing. And the way they carry out this operation, they didn't have a USAID back then. They had the USAID predecessor, who is supposedly trying to finance rural development in third world countries like Thailand, to build a road in northern Thailand, whose ostensive purpose was to facilitate rural development, but really was to build the road so all the opium from Myanmar across the border can be shipped over through their proxies in the corrupt Thai police, and then be exported to the rest of the world. And this same Golden Triangle production of opium heroin eventually got tens of thousands of American GIs who later fought in the Vietnam War hooked, and then brought their habits back to the United States. So CIA has always been involved in the drug trade. How can United States government fight CIA? They're not going to win. They're not even serious about it. I mean, the whole talk about going to Mexico to fight the drug trade is just another way to pressure Mexico to do what U.S. wants, and possibly for more land grab, because right now the Trump administration want to grab the whole Western Hemisphere. They want to go to Panama, they want to go to Greenland, they want Canada. Why not Mexico? So yeah, this for them to somehow going after Duterte for being tough on drugs, it does not make sense to majority of the people, outside of the little beltway bubble in Washington. People were like, what? Why are you going after him for going after drug lords?
I want to play a clip for you that's on the lines of what we're just talking about. It's a short clip. And then I want your opinion on this, because we've addressed most of it prior to the clip, but I want to play it to give people a more insight on what we're talking about. So everybody check this out.
Former president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, has been remanded to the International Criminal Court detention facility after being extradited to The Hague. On his way there, he posted a video message saying he will accept responsibility for his government's actions.
Whatever happened in the past, I will be the front of our law enforcement and the military. I said this already, that I will protect you and I will be responsible for everything.
Duterte was intercepted by authorities on Tuesday upon his arrival in the Philippines following a trip to Hong Kong. The ICC charges are connected with his years-long war on drugs, during which thousands of people are said to have been killed. The International Criminal Court's prosecutor says, for now, the ex-leader is presumed innocent.
Mr. Duterte is presumed innocent. He will make his initial appearance before the court soon. And the focus of the office is on the judicial proceedings and on proving its case before the judges of the International Criminal Court. And many say that international law is not as strong as we want, and I agree with that. But as I also repeatedly emphasize, international law is not as weak as some may think.
Analyst at the Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute, Daniel Hugo Santos, believes that the ICC has a double standards approach when it comes to choosing its targets.
The ICC is seen as a double standard as it targets developing countries in the global south. One of it is the Philippines. They would target low-hanging fruits. So, for example, the Philippines right now is the easiest because ICC is taking advantage of the rivalry between Duterte and Marcos. And in the same way, in Southeast Asia, they've warranted arrest on also Myanmar leaders and in Sudan, Omar al-Bashir. So, of course, they were targeting the easiest for them to access. Recently, the new German government said it would not let the ICC warrant Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. So as we can see here, it's kind of the double standard. It really depends on the situation, the political situation of the country. For the Philippines, it's going to favor the current government. So It really depends on the political landscape per country. This wasn't an issue 2 years ago when the Marcos and Duterte families were getting along. They were allies, to be specific. But now that the political situation is divided, the political families are divided in the Philippines, it would be way easier for the ICC to cooperate with the current government.
So, Carl, I know you have a little more insight on this with the political situation in the Philippines. And the reason I bring this to the forefront is because it's on a lot of people's minds, because if they do this to Duterte, then they will do it like they've done it to Charles Taylor of Liberia after using him up, and like they've done it to other people like Slobodan Milosevic of Yugoslavia. But you never see Macron, you never see Steinmeier, you never see anyone like Obama or Biden for bombing and destroying nations. You never see any of them brought up on charges or paraded through the so-called International Criminal Court, which resides in a former colonial nation.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, ICC is not for the first world, Rashid. ICC is for the jungle. That has been very clear. And with the Philippines, originally Duterte and Bongbong Marcos, they were allies because Bongbong Marcos has pledged he will follow Duterte's policy of independent foreign policy and carry on Duterte's legacy, but that didn't happen. Bongbong Marcos at first made an effort. His first trip abroad was to visit China, but soon afterwards he went to visit Washington and it did 180-degree turn. Like now Philippines is firmly back inside the U.S. camp. They're hosting largest ever U.S. Philippines military joint exercise aiming at China. They're allowing United States to station their troops on 9 Filipino bases, and they're allowing United States to stage their Typhoon missiles in the Philippines that could, have range to hit much of the southern China. And so this is they're doing Washington's betting, and this also made it easier for Washington to go after Duterte, someone they never forgave for pilot independent foreign policy that's not closely follow Washington's bid and call. So this actually is not good for the Bongbong Marcos himself, because now the rift has been more apparent. The Philippines now is in a domestic political crisis. Because a lot of the Duterte supporters, which there's still many present, they saw how blatant this is intervention in the Philippine domestic politics. But that drama will continue to play out in the Philippines. But for the people outside in the rest of the world, they can see the double standard that ICC presents. Netanyahu is still getting round of applause from all the Western politicians, and now they're clamping down on anyone who dare to criticize Israel. They're literally stripping them of their citizen of their green cards and trying to deport them from the United States just for criticizing Israel. This is crazy stuff. But we have always known this is the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Michael, one of our viewers, Michael says, is Putin still wanted by the ICC?
Yeah, that's they still have a
told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a